Well, hello.
Hi.
Oh, so actually, this sounds very much like the hello that my friend Jessica said when she started our conversation too. She said, "Well, hello. Welcome to Kai's Corner."
Welcome to Kai's Corner.
Yes.
Okay.
So, first of all, I want to congratulate you on your launch of your app.
Thank you.
Like the whole point is you collect all the recipes, then you put them onto specific days that you're trying to meal plan for, and then it'll tell you what grocery list. So I like the amalgamation of all the items that you need to buy, basically. Tell me through your process. Like, what was the whole
Um,
experience like going from start to finish?
well, I started with, so I'm a product designer, right? So I
Yeah.
started with a problem.
Okay.
I love the process of cooking, but I felt that the process of organizing the cooking was always a little bit of a pain in the ass.
Uh-huh.
And especially, we could really feel it when we would plan a Thanksgiving dinner. So Evan and I would create this like spreadsheet
Yeah.
with 10 different recipes that we brought in. And we would have to like build out, okay, well, this recipe has this many eggs, but we have to scale this recipe by this number of times,
Yeah.
etc. And then we would have the next recipe and the next recipe, and then we would collate everything, and then we would create a shopping list out of
Mm-hmm.
it. And I just wanted an easier way to do that faster and better, like a way to have my recipes somewhere where I could
Okay.
go to them in one location.
Yeah.
And then also a way to like generate shopping lists, for like planning the week, but also for planning these big meals that I like to do because I really like to have people over. I
Yeah.
like to entertain at our
Yeah.
place. So I had this as a problem and I looked around and I wasn't really in love with the solutions that were available at the time. And I thought, well, I wonder if I could build something.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been exploring a bit with AI. And I just thought, like, there has to be a more elegant way to solve this problem.
Okay.
So I guess I got to this point where I started building small scripts with AI. And then I started thinking, I wonder if I could build like a front end. So I built a front end for something.
Okay.
I was experimenting a
But
bit
you
with
had no
like a,
previous experience with any software or building front ends or back end. What
well,
was your
I
what
mean,
was your experience
like
like that?
my only experience in software was basically that I was a product designer, so I worked together with engineers a lot. I
Mm-hmm.
worked in like embedded product teams. It
Mm-hmm.
was so me, the product manager, and a bunch of engineers.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked very closely with the
Yeah.
engineers. I knew a lot about what like
What it should look like.
what it
Yeah.
should look like, and also
Yeah.
what technical constraints we're dealing with in certain cases, things like
Okay.
that. So some sense of like
Like
what is
the language
possible
you
and what's
spoke.
not. The language, yeah,
Yeah.
but I didn't have any like technical knowledge. I had never built
Built any software
anything.
before.
No,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
it was this goal that I was working towards. I was seeing all of these like technological capabilities that existed,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just curious how far I could push
How far you
them.
could push it.
So it was like, okay, well, I had this goal. I broke it down into what I thought were the
Yeah.
steps. AI is a great tool for doing that sort of thing
Because it
too.
helps you. It's like a sparring partner to help you figure out what steps you need to do to
Yeah,
like
exactly.
it's allowing you to do a lot of things that people didn't necessarily have the how-to books for back in the day. Creating a database for dummies now. Like you could
Yeah,
do it that way.
sure. Well, I mean, I could read Creating a Database for Dummies and I could understand
Yeah.
that. And then maybe at the end of a, I don't know, 2 week process of reading that book,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I would understand something that would allow me to start creating a database
Yeah.
manually. But the thing that these technologies are so good for that I've recognized, at least in my experience, just synthesizing such a massive amount of information
Yeah.
and being relatively reliable at giving you a sort of a direction
Yeah.
for what to do with that.
Yeah.
And also being able to sort of like break it down and walk you through the process. A lot of it, I think, is about asking the right question or maybe really very clearly communicating what is the end point you're trying to achieve. But if you can do that, then it really does help you get a long ways of the way
Yeah.
to what it is you're doing. I mean, you can't tell it like, hey, solve this problem for me, but you can sort of tell it to tell you how you might be able to solve that problem.
First of all, what I'm proud of you for is the ownership that you have, right? Of saying like, I have this problem and I want to see if I can solve it. But instead of trying to ask for help or ask someone else to solve that problem for you, you take the matters into your own hands and you say, this is a problem that I can solve and I can use the tools within my own arsenal to see if I can solve that problem. And that's something that I admire very much. Obviously, I try to emulate that myself. A lot of people that come to me looking for how to steer their the direction of their career, I often also have the same answer. You have to steer that for yourself. You have to
Mm,
find your own answers. You have to build your own solutions. No one's going to do that for you. It seems
thank
like
you.
you've always had that within you intrinsically, right?
Yeah, I mean, I like problems.
Yeah.
I studied philosophy Philosophy is kind of all about intractable problems and like trying to think our way through it and trying to see the world from different perspectives. I moved to Turkey by myself when I was 21.
Right.
Like, talk about a pile of problems.
It's really funny, interesting, because a lot of people say the same thing about my experience when I moved to Germany, because I didn't know anybody here. It's a similar experience where it's like, oh, how brave are you to just uproot your entire life
Go to
and
another
then
country.
go to a foreign country where you don't know the language.
Yeah, I definitely didn't know the language. I learned it, but I didn't know it when I got there.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a bit of a mindset thing.
It's a mindset.
But I think it's a mindset that other people can develop too,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. Did you always have that, or do you think like that was kind of built into you after you moved to Turkey? Or you always kind of had that before that move? Obviously, the move fortified that further.
I guess maybe when I went to uni and decided that when I really got interested in philosophy and decided that that was going to be one of the degrees that I studied, I think, I don't know, just like sort of the process of questioning, the consciousness raising that takes place in an environment like that, maybe that pushed me a little bit more in that direction. I think it's actually a really powerful discipline for
that's a very
problem solving.
philosophical way of thinking about it too. Well, okay, so I didn't actually know that you've studied philosophy. That's just, I think today was the first time that you mentioned that in my presence.
I don't talk about it as much now as I might have in the past. It's been a few years.
For me too.
Well, I studied that, and I studied lit.
Literature.
I took this English lit course, and I thought, wow, this was so interesting. It just felt like a fundamentally different way of thinking about things, this analysis that we were doing. And then I took a philosophy course, and I was like, wow, this is that on steroids.
I studied mathematics, and I think there are some similarities.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to hear your take on that.
I think there's a lot of math in philosophy, and like we studied symbolic logic, sort of like a mathematical representation of logical systems in the world. Math was something that I always found difficult, but statistics was something that was super easy for me. That it was really easy for me to comprehend.
What is it called? Intuitive.
Yeah, it was kind of
More
intuitive somehow, and I actually really like data analysis.
Okay.
So I don't know. It's a
Maybe
little
you
bit
just
of
had
a
a bad math teacher, so like that could be it. Right?
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of bad math, like algebra. I just can't do it. I don't know why, but anyway, whatever. Who cares?
It's funny. Algebra was one of my favorite subjects in school.
Okay, well there you go. Well, we can team up and take on the world together.
Yes, let's go. Tim and Kai.
Tim and
I was gonna say Tim and Evan because I'm so used to saying Tim and Evan. It's Tim and Evan. No, I mean, I guess that is the
literally
the
everyone.
dream team,
I think everyone is used to saying Tim and Evan.
But you know what's interesting is they never say Evan and Tim. It's not the other way around.
Tim and Evan.
I don't know why. It's for whatever reason in my mind, it's always Tim and Evan, not Evan and Tim.
Tim is like one syllable.
That's true.
Tim and Evan. I mean, it's poetry, basically.
So it's Tim and is the first part of the the couple.
Timon is the two syllables, and then Evan is the other two.
You were talking a little bit about AI and utilizing it to build this new app that you founded, basically. You had touched on this earlier, but I forget exactly how you phrased it. But what I remember and what I take from it is a lot of people are afraid to get into AI or are not sure like how to start with it.
Yeah.
The way I think about it is, yes, there are some tricks and there are some tools that you have in your toolkit, but like a lot of it is about just learning by doing.
Yeah.
And you just have to try and execute what you're trying to execute, and then it's like trial and error, especially when you're giving AI a prompt. You give it you give it something to try and then see if it achieves a result that you want. What would you say to individuals who are afraid to get into that, or are afraid and not sure where to start when they are starting to learn AI or any other new skill set?
Yeah, well, start small. Like, start smaller than I did, I think. I mean, that's not true. Like, I started with a lot of small things. The project that I chose to work on, sort of this like...
Yeah, that was a big... I would not have taken on that undertaking. Just like the whole parsing of recipes was so messy. Like, oh.
I mean, I knew that it would be messy to some extent, but I was like, oh wow, like language is really messy, isn't it?
Even spelling, like when you have a UK recipe versus I mean, then you have the whole imperial versus metric problem that you encountered as well.
Yeah, so, I mean, they're like different measurements, different like just you ingest data into a pipeline, and then it's human language, and there are parsers that exist, but of course they don't handle all cases. And ultimately, what I learned to do was to build a reusable pipeline. I created like a very structured process for an AI to see what had gone wrong, check with me about what is the output, like what's the data contract that we're trying to fulfill, or if maybe we have to change our contract in some way, and then go back and actually make the change. It's about understanding the logic of it, understanding like what is the system doing.
Yeah.
It does seem intimidating.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, but I think the best thing you can do is like identify a very specific problem, but try to understand like really what is the problem that you're trying to solve, and then try to or identify like a piece of that problem.
Yeah.
And see like, okay, is there a way that I could use this tool to help me solve that problem? Part of it is recognizing what is the tool able to do, right? Because it's like, yes, the tool can help you write a better email pretty easily. But if you just go into a chatbot and you're like, oh, okay, here's my email, make it better, or these are the topics that I'm dealing with, write me an email. If the chatbot doesn't have the history of like, what did the emails look like that you wrote previously? What's a good example email? Blah, 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 right? The sort of thinking about what your outcome should really be, and scaffolding what like the robot should pay attention to while trying to do your thing is really important. I think the like just learning a bit how to structure that
I think
stuff.
that's interesting that you say that, because where people struggle is they don't understand that like base database needs to be created first.
Yeah.
Where you're already training the AI to start off with. Let's say, for example, you give the AI a prompt of making an email better, but you have no information about how that email should be styled. If you get the response of the email that's changed and it's completely in a different style than what you wanted, that's your whole trial and error of where you say, oh, actually, that's not the result that I want. It might take you longer to get the result that you want, but you've gotten started.
I often solved things maybe not in the ideal way at first,
Mm-hmm.
and then later figured out a better way to do it. Like just talking about the data pipeline, like that was the thing that was probably most complex.
Okay.
And at first I did something that was quite brittle and messy, and then I used a more powerful model and it helped me do things in a more like reasonable way. One thing I would say is if you want to learn how to do something with these tools, okay, so say you want to, let's be really simple, say you want to write better emails, like regularly, consistently write better emails, because the real thing is like the real power is not in writing an email but in creating a replicable process. I think
I like that.
is really the power of
That's
these,
true.
or at least what I have like seen as the power of these tools.
But it's
And
automation is what you're doing, right?
yeah, automation, or at least semi-automation, right?
It reminds me of something basically of what I worked on when I was at HelloFresh too, right? Which is in supply chain, you have all these repeatable processes, and the idea is to find areas where you can optimize those processes, where you recognize I'm doing these again and again. Is there a way I can do the same thing easier, faster, or even without any manual intervention?
How do you take a messy string of ingredients and turn it into something that your system can like recognize? Oh, oh, flour. That's also the same thing as this,
This
flour
over
over here.
Yeah.
Let's glue them together, or let's like it gave it to you in the form of cups. But you know what, girl, I don't cook
I
in
don't
cups
use that
anymore. I don't use
anymore.
that
I have a
anymore.
kitchen scale. Let me use that, please.
Exactly. Let me pop that on my kitchen
Yeah.
scale. But you have to look up for the 730th time this week. What is 3/4 cup of
Oh my
flour?
God. I've done that so many times. Basically, you had this interest in an area and a problem that you wanted to solve. That's kind of how you embarked on this journey.
Yeah.
But it led to you being able to learn a bunch of new skills, applying that knowledge, and then really conducting what I call experiential learning, which is learning by doing and actually applying the theories that you've learned or some training that you've received and applying that into practice so that you actually internalize the things that you've learned. In retrospect, what would you have done differently in terms of the scale of the problem that you were trying to solve in relation to potentially the skills that you were trying to learn also in that process?
It's hard, right? It's hard to think about what you
Because it's all hypothetical.
it's easy to think about what you would have done differently after the fact, but it's hard to imagine doing anything differently before you've actually gone through the experience. I took on this challenge. It was a really ambiguous data problem, and I didn't know how to work with that sort of thing at all. I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't really know what to watch out for. And I didn't feel like sitting down and reading a bunch of books on figuring out how to deal with data problems.
Data for Dummies.
I mean, maybe I would have read Data for Dummies before I started. but I think like it was only kind of through the doing and the failing
Yeah.
and figuring it out next that I learned more about like creating sort of a contract between, you know, the data that you're
Yeah.
saving and the UI that you're trying to display things as. I did a lot of like building because I wanted to learn how to build, but I think I would have done more being a designer and being a product manager because I wanted to think about how should I really visually represent the things that I'm trying to communicate, so that I can really deliver something clear and easy and valuable for a user to solve a specific problem. So thinking about what does a user really need to see, therefore what is the information that should be displayed in certain parts of the UI, etc. And maybe also thinking more from the lean product perspective, like what is the simplest version of this that I could possibly deliver.
Yeah.
And I did try to think from that perspective, but I was doing design, I was doing product, I was doing the building,
End to
and I
end.
was end to end to end to end to end,
Yeah.
but I was also doing it and not having done so many of those things. And I think that's kind of an overwhelming experience. And it becomes a little challenging to like juggle all of those things completely effectively. But it's interesting now because I sort of went back to the product and I started looking at it and I was like, oh, well, this is horrible. Like I did this obviously very wrong. But now I understand what this data object is that I'm creating now in a way that I didn't really fully comprehend. I had like a sort of a logical system, and the AI was helping me build it, but I didn't necessarily fully understand the output that was coming out of it. And I think as I worked with it more, I began to understand the output, and then I began to understand like how to structure it better. So it's like, would I have changed things? Yes, but also I wouldn't have known how to change them. So I don't even think I could have.
Yeah. You're embarking on a journey where you don't know what problems you'll run into until you encounter them.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's sort of just like on the fly problem solving, which honestly I think also is a really great way to learn and one of the best ways. As long as you don't feel discouraged. Were there days when you were building this at which you said, I wish I had someone to like bounce ideas like an actual
Yeah,
person?
sure,
Yeah.
totally. Oh my God, there were days where I wanted to throw my computer out the window. I was like, what the fuck am I doing? You know,
Yeah.
problems felt intractable. I just couldn't. I mean, a lot of this like trying to manage data and trying to build a way to handle it. Um, there were times when I
Yeah.
was like, I don't know if I can do this.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it was like I felt like I broke the problem down and I figured out a way to handle it. And you know, things aren't perfect, but they're okay. But some of that stuff was really, it was challenging.
Yeah.
But I like Evan is a very accomplished product thinker. He was quite helpful in helping me think about portions of it,
Yeah.
right? So I definitely had him to
Good. Yeah.
talk to about it and bounce ideas. From the technical side, I mean, no, not necessary. I mean, of course, he has technical knowledge. He's worked with technical people for over a decade. So conceptually, some things, but of course, not for like implementation.
Yeah. I think it goes back to what you were saying earlier, which is mindset, right?
Yeah.
If you have the mindset to say, regardless of what kind of problems I run into, I'm going to try and solve each of these single itty bitty problems as its own contained problem. And then once I solve one, I can move on to the next one, right?
Yeah.
And it's iterative, and it's not only a mindset, but it's also like it starts to build character where you're able to tackle any problem that eventually comes your way, and then learn ways to solutionize for it, basically.
Yeah, well, it gives confidence too,
That
I
too.
guess. Once you
Yeah.
build something, like if you have some success with it, then you have a little confidence, and then you're like, oh, okay, maybe I can do something
Yeah.
else.
That is the key. Is like compartmentalizing and saying, oh, I'm just gonna focus on this little tiny problem today.
Yeah,
And if I can solve that, it's a win for the day. And
yeah,
it encouraged me to further develop that the next day. And I was like, oh, I can do this. So I can continue on the
yeah,
next day.
yeah.
So
I think it's a really good point. Yeah, breaking things down. But it's so relevant in so many different parts of our lives. You know, whether it's like this really complicated technical problem that you want to solve. You know, I had this friend, and she was telling me the other day that she's like, "Oh, I just feel blue. It's Berlin. It's depressing winter. I'm kind of lonely. I'm a bit isolated,
yeah,
and also like I'm not like doing physical activity."
mental.
And yeah,
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
feel mentally bad or off
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not doing physical activity, and I
Mm-hmm.
know that it has something to do with it. And I was like, okay, well, I think there's a lot going on here. but you have to remember that you can't solve it all at once.
Right.
So what's the first thing? Like, what's the most important? What's the, like, the basis?
Yeah.
And she was like, probably the physical activity. And I
Yeah.
said, yeah, I would agree. I think
Yeah.
that probably is it.
So
So, like, what's a small
get on your
activity? What's
feet.
that
Yeah.
small thing that you can
Exactly.
do to start moving in that direction?
Yeah.
She's like, yeah, you're right. I should
Yeah.
make a point to do this. And I was like, yeah, okay.
Baby steps.
Baby
Baby
steps,
steps.
exactly. And don't, like, kill yourself at the gym the first time you go. You gotta, like,
Which we often do. We overdo. Yes.
this is something that I have learned. Like, I have gotten a lot better at not overdoing it when I go back to the gym, because I would
Yeah.
always overdo it.
Yeah. And then the next day you're like,
And
well,
then
that was too much. I can't do that again. So I'm not going to
you're like,
go.
I hate this. I feel like shit. I'm never
Yeah.
going again. Yeah, totally. Uh,
Well, I want to thank you for being on Kai's Corner.
you're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And yeah, I think we'll end there. Congrats again on your app. I'm gonna share with you all of my feedback once I get
Yeah,
around to it.
sure.
So
Let's do it. I can't wait.